Hey, Jim Vanoski here. We've talked about this before. When you think about Montana, you think about things like Yellowstone, outdoor life and beauty, wildlife, ranching, cowboys. And silversmiths? Well, yeah, they've got a good one out there, a company called Montana Silversmiths, and we're talking to their CEO, Lance Neirby, right now here on Manufacturing Talks.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanoski. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vanoski, your host. We're sponsored by DYS Media. You're going to be hearing from them about halfway through our show today. And today I'm glad to welcome our guest, Lance Neirby. He is the CEO of Montana Silversmiths. Welcome, Lance.
Hey, thanks, Jim. I really appreciate you having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. It was really great to meet you when I was out there a few weeks ago, and then I got digging into the story of the company and then your background. Just such phenomenal stuff. I do have to say, though, I showed my wife your company website today, and now I'm in trouble.
That's right.
Your stuff's not unreasonable, but I can see us owning a lot of it over time.
Yeah, that's the thing is Montana Silversmiths is pretty unique and it's affordable.
It's very, very affordable. Yep. But beautiful stuff. So we'll dig into that more. First thing, though, I wanted to talk about is, like I said, your background's really, really cool. And so I just wanted to hear how you landed where you are today.
Yeah, thanks. My family and I moved out to Montana 6 years ago, originally from the Minnesota area, and went to undergrad at Carleton College, got focused on metal sculpture and jewelry there, and then was like, oh, what am I going to do because I don't want to work at Starbucks? And so my family's pretty creative. My mom was a interior designer. My dad's a veterinarian. And so then I went out and decided through some mentorships, always important to have strong mentors in your life, that they guided me to I should probably go achieve some more technical skills. So then I went out to upstate New York, focused on a Master of Fine Arts in metal sculpture and jewelry at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. And that was a really incredible turning point for me where I gained a bunch of technical skill sets. And then I won a scholarship from Tiffany Co while I was in grad school, and then they brought me down to New York and introduced me to a manufacturing group for a Tiffany company called Hollowware, where they make all the world's best sports trophies. So Vince Lombardi Trophy, Major League Baseball, like World Series, everything for the NBA. So all these incredible silver trophies, and I then, as a silversmith, learned how to basically build them from scratch. Myself and a team of other silversmiths, and started learning more and more and growing that business. And as Tiffany's was an incredible company because they focused on developing their future leaders. So I went through their management training programs time and again, and to run more and more of their operation, and got involved with basically all their custom stuff. So custom wood shop, all the trophies and Hollowware, and then also sports rings. So we did all the sports rings for the major events as well. And then I expanded a little bit more and started running a production environment for solitaire diamond engagement bands. And for Tiffany's, that's what the original.
Oh yeah.
They invented the diamond engagement band.
Yep.
So that is called the Tiffany setting. And so I was involved in that group and leading that group for a couple of years. And then this opportunity came by to move to the mountains. And when somebody from Montana says, like, let's have you come on and take a look at this operation, you can't turn that down.
I hear you.
Yeah, so it came out to Montana, surrounded by the mountains, in this most beautiful place on the planet. And there's this manufacturing business called Montana Silversmiths there. And it's 150 employees, and they make 40% of our items that we sell are made right here in little old Columbus, Montana, west of Billings. And how I saw them basically ornamenting the surface of jewelry was something I'd never seen before, because all the rest of the entire jewelry industry had gone so high tech that the surface needed to be clean, smooth, and shiny, where Montana Silversmiths had created this look that allowed every piece to look like it was handmade and handcrafted, and the surface is covered with beautiful Western bright cut engraving and it was something that I had to learn. Like it just had to come out and learn this process and be a part of the group. So it was something that I jumped at the opportunity when it arose.
Well, that's really cool. I should mention, I was talking to a friend of mine who grew up in Montana just the other day, and I said, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to be talking to a silversmith from out there," and he says, "Not someone from Montana Silversmiths." I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Holy cow, that's awesome!" I said, "Not just someone. I'm talking to their CEO."
It's like,
but so obviously they've been around since long before you arrived. So tell us a little something about the history of the company.
So the company was founded by Kent Williams in 1973 in Columbus, and he looked at this opportunity in this Western rural culture where there was this tradition of giving award buckles. So belt buckles, trophy buckles in the rodeo world. And so he took that and ran with it and started to develop from his original, his customizable trophy buckles to then have coming out with a line of buckles that everyday consumers could buy and wear who enjoyed Western culture. And then he turned that into adding on a jewelry line as well. Mm-hmm. At the time, he was producing everything here in Columbus, and he just built that company from nothing to something that is inside the Western industry. People think that Montana Silversmiths and Wrangler are the same size.
Oh.
Like, they think that it's that we're this monstrous company, and we're a big small company is what we are. But there's so much prestige and acclaim for this company that it just carries a lot of weight. The brand carries a lot of weight, and that's what you experience when you talk to your friend. It's just like that is the company. Like it's got a lot of weight to it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have the utmost respect for people who start off like he did with nothing and just build something so meaningful and so important to its community too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We employ 150 people locally. We've got sales reps throughout the United States and Canada. There's 3,000 locations across North America where you can go to a store and see our items and buy our items. But the brilliance of the business model that Kent created is pretty amazing. So he's building these things in Columbus, and then distribution is everything. So where are you going to distribute your items? He built this distribution network into originally tax stores, so Western tax stores, tax shops, because that's where Western people are going. And then they're like, well, I'm buying this poncho for my horse saddle, where I can actually sell earrings into that store too. So it grew organically out of that distribution network. And then the big breakthrough for Kent was in the mid 80s, one of his sales reps, his sales just took off. It's like, well, how are you doing that? The guy was building jewelry cases in his garage. So taking them to the retailers and putting all the Montana stuff together in a beautiful jewelry case.
Oh, nice.
And so now it all had a home. So that's what Kent then turned that into company-wide. Our stuff is only sold in our branded jewelry cases throughout these 3,000 locations. So there's this recognizable brand presence, whether it's in a farm and ranch store or a fleet farm or a hardware store like Ace Hardware, or we're in casinos across the country as well. So there's always this brand presence that remains the same no matter who the dealer is that's selling our items. Yeah. So, and then with all those locations, it's very difficult for a competitor to come in and be like, an upstart and be like, yeah, I'm going to be a Montana Silversmiths. Right. The amount of work that it's taken over the last 50 years to get that many locations is monumental. So we have something that's not imitable by any means. So it's pretty difficult to replicate.
Yeah. And just another example of the business savvy there of him realizing, okay, someone's outperforming. What is the cause and how do we replicate that across the network? Really cool absolutely. Stuff. So you had mentioned that you've got this difference from a lot of your competitors in look that's driven by technology difference. So talk more about that.
So in the kind of segment our business into this trophy buckle business, there's 20 some trophy buckle businesses that are in the US, but everything is made in Mexico. where, so they design it here and make it there. And they are all making everything by hand, where at Montana Silversmiths, we can serve all levels of the consumer. So we can make a trophy buckle for a reasonable price, or we can make something, we can make a $40,000 buckle. So it just depends on what the consumer wants. So we're a brand who can serve all these different levels of what the consumer desires. So how we've started to adapt, though, and utilize technology, because we're kind of isolated out where we are in rural Montana, west of Billings, far enough away from Billings that it's difficult to have people drive over. And so what we've really doubled down on is understanding what we do best. So leveraging our artisan skill sets to make sure everything looks like it's authentically made, but then bringing in other technology, 3D printing specifically, and laser cutting, laser engraving, and laser welding that allows us to not only continue to hire more people, but now we have more throughput. So we've been focused a lot on pioneering those aspects in our business to ensure that we just continue to support our growth, because we've been on a growth trajectory for the last 4 years that's like remarkable. And so we just need to build more and more and more stuff. And so we've had to embrace technology to allow us to do that, because we have a limited labor force where we're at.
Yeah. Now, if you say you've been growing the last 4 years, then there's also got to be some really, I guess, up with the times e-commerce strategy behind that as well, right?
Yeah, correct. So we've developed our own e-commerce site like 15 years ago. And then we've just slowly built that over time. But it's like, my favorite book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. You just start stacking little bits of things that are successful on top of each other. And now all of a sudden you build all of this momentum that it becomes something incredible. And that's what our e-commerce site has done as well. Not only can we now have that through manufacturing, but our e-commerce site is performing at world-class levels and volumes that it can do, because we've just built it one piece at a time, and we've learned something else, and we've applied it to that e-commerce platform, and then we learned something else, and now we're at a point where it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, like I said, I was looking at it before and I got sucked in, and I'm not even going to be the one wearing the stuff. at least not the jewelry I was looking at. My wife is peering over my shoulder, and yeah, we'll have some orders coming your way. One thing I was interested in, going back to your background, is you talk about being with Tiffany, which obviously is a phenomenal place to build the beginning of your career, but it's very different from where you are today. And you mentioned that they had really great leadership development, but how have you seen your philosophy on leadership evolve as you've gone from that larger company to a small outfit out in a very different culture?
There's a lot of things that transfer really well. And then there's also some things that you have to be really aware of the culture that you move into, and understand how this culture and this work climate looks at things on a leadership side. And so at Tiffany's, we were really focused on a hierarchical structure where you had your manufacturing vice president, and you had your directors of your facilities, and then you had your directors of all these other things, and you had your managers, then you had your supervisors, then you had your team leads. This was a massive 800-person facility. Right. Yeah. And so it's something where I came out here, I was like, okay, I'm going to apply that same idea here, but we're much smaller. And so when I originally came out, I put a layer in that really didn't accomplish what I wanted it to do. And actually just recently we decided, I have to open my mind and say, how does this culture operate? What is the chain of command here, so that everybody's aware of the plan? Mm-hmm. And so we actually have smoothed it out lately, and we're running even better because we're trying to empower our employees kind of higher than they were, and empower them to ask the questions, but also making sure that everybody's aware of their roles and responsibilities. And always comes back to that. Right. Ambiguity leads to anxiety. And so if nobody knows what they're supposed to do, well, we've just recently redefined across the organization, these are your roles and these are your responsibilities. And if you have this kind of question, you go to that person. If you have this kind of question, you go to that person. So there's some things that I was trying to apply from my background is like, oh, wait a second, we are a different kind of company. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that I just learned recently. Also, too, when you're trying to motivate people, At Tiffany's, we implemented an efficiency platform that could measure productivity and efficiency by employee. And what we saw there is that your best employees got even better because they're driven by that. I want to see that number increase. Your median employees all stayed about the same, and your poor performing employees, it just got worse. Mm-hmm. And it was adverse effects because now the guys that were actually walking around helping everybody, your best employees, they were helping everybody, they were always bringing them up, are no longer doing that because you told them to only care about themselves.
Right, interesting.
So now they just focused down and said, my boss told me to only get that number up, and that's it. And it actually turned into a negative impact. So when I came out here, we focused on team goals.
Right.
Understanding and really in trying to make it simple because everything can be so complicated in manufacturing. So you got 75,000 parts going through at any one time, like tracking all that on work orders and what is my responsibility on my route step and my time, and saying, well, actually, I only care about one thing, constant measurable improvement. So I want to measure the team. How many units did you complete yesterday? And then how many units did you complete same time last year? The only thing I care about is you just get a little tiny bit better than last year at the same time. Because there's so many things that you guys can't control. Like you're just the guy in the buckling room polishing buckles. So you can't control if we're late on a part, and so you don't have the amount of buckles that you need to hit the quota that we would like you to get. But you can do everything you can with inside of those four walls to just try to get out one more unit than you did yesterday, one more unit than you did same time last year as a team. And that's been relatively successful. So, you know, it's learning what I learned at Tiffany's about, like, we can't divide the team up. We actually have to figure out how to measure the team and get them closer together. So that's been important.
Good stuff. Hey, we are going to take a short break now. We're going to hear from our sponsor, DYS Media, and then we'll be right back with Lance Neirby.
DYS Media, your digital media relations agency. Public relations, website design, digital marketing. You get found by the customers and talent who need your solutions. You get media placements in top publications, the best job candidates coming to your website, a digital presence that gets you found by the right people. Call 616-298-8798 to get started today.
All right, we are back at Manufacturing Talks. Thank you to our sponsor, DYS Media. And we're here with Lance Neirby. He's the CEO at Montana Silversmiths. So Lance, you were just telling me before we went on break about some of the things you may do from a management philosophy to drive steady improvement. What about as far as like when you look at your big challenges today? I'm sure, you know, a lot of what I heard you saying there was pretty typical of manufacturers and the kinds of things they have to look at to be successful. I have to believe you're running into some of the same problems I hear across the country and across the world as far as the big kind of hurdles that you're having to overcome right now.
You know, for us, what we try to drive our philosophy on, a growing company is a healthy company. And so we're always trying to grow. And with that comes challenges because everything has to line up. So you got to make sure that our product development cycle is really 12 months or longer out. Ideas generate at 15 months. We start to put them into the product development cycle at 12 months. And then we start actually building and approving actual like finished pieces 9 months out. You know, so there's this huge long window that we have to be aware of. And we have to know the strength of our own supply chain throughout that to know if, like, are we still dealing with strong companies, or is there things happening with those companies that will then hold us up a year from now when we actually launch that product. We're always looking at supply chain. We're always trying to look out, 15 months ahead on design. Another challenge that we had during the pandemic was all of a sudden with everything shutting down, we are heavily reliant on metal. We need metal. And so something that normally took us 4 weeks to get, like, no problem. And just ordering 1,000 pounds every 4 weeks. Now it went from 4 weeks to 8 weeks to 16 weeks to 52 weeks. You're at a year on something that should take you 4 weeks. Yep. And so when we started to see the pandemic happen over in China, we as a team met and said, what are we going to do to insulate ourselves? And we just started procuring metal. We just said, it's bread and milk time. we got to get in stock on red and milk. So for us, it's stones, it's chains, it's precious metal, it's non-precious metal. And so we just went out, we actually procured 2 years worth of metal.
Wow.
2 years worth of chains. And so we were able to insulate ourselves from the supply chain disruptions that everybody else felt across the world, because we just took a little jump and took a little risk and we hedged. Then it turned out really well for us because all of our competitors weren't shipping anything because they didn't do that.
Right.
And so we're the only company in our space that was actually delivering on schedule to all of our dealers because we were in stock.
Oh yeah, they had to love you.
Oh man, and it was great because, and we would have these conversations with our customers of, they can't get hats, they can't get boots, they can't they need those items to sell to pay for the overhead of their retail facility. Right. You know who's in stock all the time? We are. And so it was a good relationship on both sides. So, and that helped jumpstart a lot of our current relationships, and our growth was traditionally prior to like 2019, we shipped 750,000 units a year. Now we ship 1.5 million units.
Wow.
And I have the same headcount. So there's a lot of work that put into place, making sure that we're designing for manufacturability. So, because you have to know your facility and your skill sets and your core competencies really well. Because, could I make a pen out of silver? Yeah, I could. Is that something that we should do? No, it's not. Right. And so making sure that the items that we're designing, we can speed through this facility and the vendors that supply us too. So everything is lining up. And now with the same vendor space and the same employees here in Columbus, we're able to almost double our unit volume per year. That's been a real success for us.
So I really wish I'd had your story before I gave my speech out there, because, I mentioned those companies that had done so well, even with the difficulties of the pandemic. And yours is a great story for that, to drive that kind of productivity improvement just by being smart about, grabbing onto that opportunity is just phenomenal.
For us, it was always our philosophy too, is like, you never let a good tragedy go to waste.
Right. Yeah.
Great
way to look at it.
You start to think a lot differently when your ass is on the line. You really do.
And better, right?
Yeah. And so you got to think on your feet, and you got to make a lot of different decisions. And that's what we did. And it's really paid off.
Excellent. Nice. So as you think about then, kind of the flip side of that, the opportunities looking out farther now, you've set yourselves up so well where you sit today. What are you looking at with, continuing to drive that growth down the road?
Yeah, for us, new account growth is always focused on, let's first start with, are we servicing our current dealers to the best of our ability, or are we leaving money on the table? So 2 years ago, we developed a B2B site. So now, instead of waiting for a sales rep to come around every quarter to sell back in, our dealers have a platform, basically like any e-commerce platform, where they can reorder what's in their model stock. And so we put the ownership in their hands to stay in stock between the times that our reps come and service their jewelry cases. So that's one. So we see natural lift then, because we get more turns, because if you're out of stock that somebody can't buy it, and the smart dealer sees that, and they just get right back in stock. So that's been very beneficial. So we want to service our current dealers better than we ever have. Then we want to prospect for new. For us, for new is having really good relationships with all of our dealers to know what their new store openings are, so that our supply chain of new jewelry cases lines up when those new stores are opening, so that we can just seamlessly expand with their new store openings. So that's an important part of our growth. And then additionally to that is casinos for us are an incredible retail space, because
interesting.
You have this active audience that goes there to spend money.
Yes.
And there's gift shops in all these casinos.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we've found incredible relationships that we've built with casinos throughout Oklahoma and Texas, Hard Rock casinos as well. And there's lots of room there for us to continue to expand our dealer profile into those dealers, so into those little jewelry stores. And the great thing about them is, our jewelry case, basically 4 feet wide, 6 feet tall, holds about 350 units of jewelry. It'll get wiped out in one weekend if they got like Luke Bryant playing in Oklahoma.
A big draw.
Yeah, so we get a big draw of like country, Western focused people. They see our stuff there. They have now, they have cemented a memory, yeah, as they walk out. You know, they didn't just buy a t-shirt, they went and bought a piece of jewelry because they know the story of like, I saw that amazing concert, had a great time at the casino, and I got a piece of Montana Silversmiths. Because it's all aligning up very well together.
That's cool. Do you see any opportunity as far as like new business areas, or are you just going to stick with what you have and expand from there?
If I find a good question, if I go back to Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, hedgehog concept.
Yep.
So you want to make sure that what you're passionate about, what your economic driver is, and what you can be the best in the world at is what you're focusing all your energy at. And where Montana Silversmiths has gone off the rails in the past is we didn't have that guidance, and so former leadership would look at the jewelry case and say, I wonder if I could sell a purse in there. Mm-hmm. Well, a leather purse takes up the same real estate as 30 units of earrings.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you turn that purse 2 times a year, and I turn jewelry at 5 to 10 times a year. You know, like, so the math never worked out. So our guiding principle on how we measure the success of the business is profitability per case. So we know how profitable each case is. So if we make any decisions about anything in the company, we look at our guiding metric, profitability per case. Does it increase it? We do it. If it decreases it, we don't do it. So we try to make it as simple as possible as our guiding philosophy.
Now you've got me wanting to go back and reread Good to Great. It's been a while.
Oh yeah.
But I do remember the lessons you're talking about. And yeah, it's just, it's basic stuff that it's that kind of stuff you think, well, of course, but it took someone bright enough to do the research and back it up that, yeah, this simple stuff really does work.
Yeah. How does every team who wins a championship, how do they win that championship? They are masters of the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. They pass well, they block well, they're constantly looking for their teammates. That's what we do as a business is we just want to master the fundamentals. It's not sexy at all. It's blocking and it's tackling. And if you do that over and over and over, you just get really good at it and it becomes natural. So we try to stay away from like being blinded by like the latest whiz bang thing. And we just focus back on the core of the business and what we do well. And how do we take our stuff to a different audience? That's where other continued growth can be, is there's segments of the market that we really haven't penetrated, not because they won't buy our stuff, it's just because we haven't gone there yet. Right. So, and that's another area of opportunity. And if we line that up with, here's a casino on the East Coast at Atlantic City, our stuff is beautiful, it's affordable, it makes sense, then we're going to get into that casino and now we can have an East Coast presence. So that's what we're focused on.
What about international?
So international, what we're thinking about there is how do you apply this same business model where we supply, take Boot Barn has 500 stores, right? So we supply jewelry to Boot Barn and they sell it under our name in our case at their stores. Who is the Boot Barn of an English speaking country? Let's define it first because we don't want to have to start translating everything. So let's look at who is the Boot Barn of Australia, who is the Boot Barn of England, who is the Boot Barn, of Canada, and we are really focused on Canada. We've seen a lot of growth there. Sure. So we know that model works really well because then if you see a multi-hundred door account that you have a relationship with, then other people will start to approach us and develop a relationship from those countries because they'll see it at their competitor, their big competitor. They're like, oh wow, you guys are selling this new company I've never heard of before. And then they'll approach us. So we have some targets that we want to work with. And what we look at is we love to do business with partners who we respect. Mm-hmm. So, because everything's smoother. When you respect each other, man, everything is just easy. You can take a lot of red tape and throw it to the side and just say, hey, we trust each other, let's do this together. And so that's the relationships that we have with our customers, whether it's business customers or end consumers, is we want to do business with people we respect. So that's what we're looking for in that global market is how do we do that in those other areas?
Yep. Excellent. Well, we are getting down to the last couple minutes here. So I've had my questions. Let me kind of throw it open to you. What else should people know about you and Montana Silversmiths?
One of our major initiatives for 2023 is really focusing back on our stakeholders. So if we only focus on our shareholders, then we kind of missed the boat on steamroll of positivity. And so we've been really focused so far in the first 3 months of this year at reaching out and connecting with our local schools and finding, I didn't even know this, I've been here 6 years, there's a jewelry program in Billings at Rocky Mountain College.
Oh, really?
So, like, I'm looking for jewelers to hire every day. And literally 45 miles away, there's a jewelry school.
Yeah.
And so, it's just taking a moment after we've really successfully built the business back to what it once was to say, what we need to do is we actually have to reach out to our community and start to invest time and effort into them, because that's where our future employees are going to come back. And I think that a lot of manufacturers are in the same boat of us, as like they were so heads down and so focused for so long, and then we're complaining about, I can't find any new employees. You got to go fight for them. You got to go find them. You got to go develop those relationships with those technical schools, or any other craft school, or anything that you need for engineering schools, so that you just become the go-to. That's how I got my job at Tiffany's. They came to me.
Right. Yep.
Right. They gave me a scholarship, brought me down to Manhattan, and then showed me my way in the company and said, hey, we think you should connect with this manager of this department because you'd be a great fit over there. Yep. That's the relationships that we want to focus on building locally, so that we can continue to grow as a business and sustain this ride that we're on.
Yeah, you are so preaching to the choir here, because I've been talking about that for quite a while, even beyond that immediate building your workforce and finding that tie like you did with the jewelry program. Just getting in front of students and coming from a manufacturing and technical world that they otherwise might never even know a thing about, and showing them how cool it can be. I mean, silversmith, that is the coolest thing ever, right? Get that in front of students and get them thinking about, maybe accountant isn't that great.
Exactly. That's the thing. And I think a lot of businesses struggle with that. And
well, and just like you said, you're so hunkered down, especially if you're doing well, know? And then it's tough to draw yourself to do something like that when you're doing poorly, because it's all hands on deck to fix the problem. So, there's never a good time to do it. So do it now, start reaching out to your nearest schools and making those relationships like you talked about. That's phenomenal stuff. Awesome. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I just greatly appreciate you having me on, Jim. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was great. I learned so much. And, I think the story there goes to so many basics for all of manufacturers. So I'm really going to be pushing this one for people just to learn from. It's such a different business from so many of the ones I've talked to before, but you grapple with the same problems, and you've solved so many of them so well. So thank you, Lance. Lance Neirby, CEO, Montana Silversmiths. Where do they find you?
So MontanaSilversmiths.com, and we have, not only can you purchase items directly from our website, you can build custom buckles on there, or as a dealer locator. So if you want to go check us out in your local area, just pop in your zip code and we'll show you where you can go see us in live in person. So
fantastic.
Really appreciate it.
Yep, it's beautiful stuff. I was really, really impressed with what I saw. And like I said, you will be getting orders because Mother's Day is coming up.
Sounds good. Very good.
Thanks again, Lance. And thank everyone who tuned in. Thank you for tuning into Manufacturing Talks, telling the coolest stories of manufacturing. And this was definitely one of them. So stay tuned for our next coming episodes. We'll have more great stories like this coming your way. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinoski. Watch for new episodes dropping on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.